Hello. Are you ready for some HyperCard? So, um, as you guys know, I'm working on an adventure game, text adventure, in HyperCard, which kind of sounds weird since HyperCard can do graphics, but as you've seen probably from my earlier work, I am not a graphic designer. So, and I like text adventure games, so that's the idea behind it. Anyway, I ran into a thing. I'm trying to build a form that you can use to edit your locations and things like that, so you can, build your game. And I needed some way of doing a multi-select list. HyperCard doesn't have exactly what you would think of as a multi-select list as a feature. So you have to kind of build one. And there's a couple of ways to do it, and this is one of them. I happen to like it. So let's switch over to HyperCard so you guys can see it. And what I decided to do, instead of digging into the nitty-gritty of the game code, is I threw together this example stack, and it's got the various built-in tools that you can use, and then there's my multi-select list tool. So shouldn't be a very long stream tonight, because I'm a little bit tired, and I'm just gonna cover this concept, and I'll work this into my HyperCard class. So one of the things you can get out of the box with HyperCard is a field. Grab the right mouse, Eric. Is a a field, and this field can be scrollable. There's a bunch of properties that you can do on a field. This one's scrolling. You can lock the text so that nobody can edit what's in the box. You can set it up so it doesn't wrap single lines around, so that you could have just text going on one line. And then auto select is a way that it will automatically select lines. So there's a couple other features too, but I'll go over each one of these. So this is just the plain Jane field, and you can use it to have users select text. They could double click on a line and it'll select what's there. It'll select a word by default, and there's some things you can do to make it select the entire line or something. But one of the problems you get, so I can select this, and I've got this button coded to show the text. So shows up here underneath. Simple, it'll work. But if you select something odd like this, you're going to get exactly the text that you selected. So that can be a bit of a problem. If you're going to have a game or features or do something based off of the text of this line being selected, and your user does something like this, it's not going to work the way you want it to. So you can kind of get it to work, but it's a problem. But at least it takes up just this much real estate on the screen. You can have 32,000 bytes of text in here, so you can make a really long list. Okay, now the next one is an auto select setting. So let's go and take a quick look at that. And in here I've got the text locked so you can't type into it. I've got it set to do not wrap so that your line of text is all on one line, and auto select is enabled. And if you do that, then the behavior changes a little bit. Now when I click somewhere, it actually selects that line and unselects the others, and whatever you've got selected will show. Now I've added an extra command here to remove the selection, just to keep it clean. But so this will work if you only want to select one thing. So that's a bit of a limitation, but it can work, and the code's pretty simple. Now let's. There's another feature, and that is multiple lines, and that's a setting where it allows you to select multiple lines. So you would think that this, you hold the shift key down, would actually solve your problem. I can select multiple items in the list. Well, here's the problem with that. If I want to select 1 and 4, I can't. It does a contiguous section, so the selection is everything that is between the 2 points. So, I mean, it works. I can select, let's see, 7 through 4, and it'll show up in here. But I run into the problem of, what if I want 2 and 5 selected? I just can't do it. So one of the ways you can get around this is you could do kind of a traditional, here's your list of things that you want or available to you, and here's your list of things that that you have selected, and put some buttons in where you could pick one thing over in this box, and then hit the button to copy it over to the other one, and that way you could select your lists and put it all together. I actually did that. It uses up a lot of real estate on the screen, but the code's not too difficult, and you can make it work. But it's a little clunky from a user interface standpoint. So I came up with this as the answer to that. Command when you're clicking? Oh, are you going to tell me there was a way around this? No, that doesn't work. According to the manual in the information that I have available, you can't do multi-select. Only works with continuous parts. So did multi-select combo boxes exist in the wild? There may have been external command extensions that created extra group controls that had that kind of thing. But I try very hard to use out-of-the-box HyperCard when I develop stuff, because that would have been the experience most people would have had. I eventually plan to get into extensions, both commands and functions, but I'm not going to do it anytime soon. So anyway, so this, the shift works to do it. Let's see, control doesn't do anything, option doesn't do anything, and command doesn't do anything. So I don't think you can get there from here. So what I did was I came up with my own, I don't just mean HyperCard. Does it exist in the toolbox or even Windows? Good question. It does now, yeah. At the time, I don't know. I'm trying to remember. I think maybe in VB6 that environment had it, but honestly I don't really remember. So anyway, so there's no native out-of-the-box way to do this. What I came up with is this. I built a box that works off of the single line select, and then has a graphic element that's just character based next to it. You could use a checkbox or something like that. Maybe a box with a X in it, and then empty box would be more traditional. I just threw this together today. And I picked this character by going through keycaps and just going, okay, what do I get if I do shift? Okay, that's not going to do much. What about command? No. What about option? Option gave me the black dot. And then the letter O happens to be very close to it. So this works. Now, it does take a bit of code, and unfortunately, HyperCard is a crude version of object-oriented programming. There's no inheritance. You can't wrap things together. I can't add properties or attributes really to standard controls. So you have to kind of throw code around to do it. But, you know, it does work. I could do some work to make it more reusable. I'd love to be able to, and I've been working on trying to do this, to add the code to the field control that you use, and then that way at least it's in the same object. But there's problems with doing that. And what if I want to have multiple ones on a form? Blah blah blah. There's two ways that you can execute code in HyperCard. You could do you could send a message and have a handler for that message. Well, calling a message handler can be a little sloppy if you're trying to pass a bunch of dynamic parameters and stuff. If the other is a function. If you do a function, then you have to pass to the function what you're going to be doing with it. Like I need to tell that function which control I'm using. Or, you know, if you have a message handler, it's just built into it, and you can refer to the control in the code for the message handler by using the keyword me. So I gotta mess around with it more, but I got this to work. So let me show you the code here. So for the button on the simple show text on the plain field, it's very simple. You just put the selected text, and I put it into this card field selection so that we could see it. So selected text is a function that will, no matter where the selected text is, that's what you get. So that now you run into a problem. If I use this kind of a control, and I use the selected text feature to do it, well, if I go to another control and select text there, I lost the selection in this control. So that's a problem if you've got a form with multiple fields on it. And if we look at this one, so this is that simple, put the selected text of card into select line 0 of the card, that unselects what's there. So selected text in this case is, go back to the browser control, is just grabbing that selected line. Same function call, but because of the property where it's go back in here, auto select, with auto select on, it automatically selects the line. So that gives you at least, you know, some control over what the user is selecting. Still a good solution. I mean, if you wanted to do something that's just a simple select one thing from this list, it makes it easy to do. This one, with the multi-select, script, again, you're just using selected text. And what it does, though, is it gives you whatever those multiple lines are with a carriage return at the end of each line. So code's very similar. It's very simple. Doesn't require much. Now let's look at my more complicated solution here. Okay, now we're getting into some code. So when you press this button, I call a function passing it which card field I want to grab the multi-select from. So I'm referring to card field multi-select list by name. And this function resides just on the card level of code. You could put it in the stack level. If you look at one of the example HyperCard stacks that's in the home stack, there's one for drawing graphics, does charting and stuff like that, and it generates code and slaps it into where it needs it. So so there's ways you could have HyperCard write the code for you. Kind of kludgy. And then this function, this is actually I put it in the button handler, so the code's here in the button. So what it's doing is it's putting empty into a list. It's a local variable I've got that I'm going to return, and I repeat. The repeat function is the only looping mechanism that you have in HyperCard. There's no while or for or anything like that. You use repeat with different keywords associated with it for the different kinds of loops. So I'm repeating with x equal 1 to the number of lines in the field. So it's very much like English, and it says, when you want the number of lines in the field, that's what I literally do. I put line x of the field into the line, so I have a variable that's local. It makes it easy to follow the execution of the code if you use local variables. I remove the selected part. So this is just a single line of text in here. There's a way that you can do delimiters for different. You could do a list that's delimited by commas, and there's a built-in function to get items from the list. The problem is that your commas would show up in this thing, and so what I'm doing is word 1 of the list, I check to see if it's this filled-in circle, and then I remove word 1 from it and return that, so that I'm taking out the dot in the space in between, and I get just back the word for it. So let's go ahead and trace the execution of this. So if I go over here, I've got 4 and 5 selected. Click Show Text, and it stops here. The debugger in here isn't great, but it's better than what you had at the time in most environments. So if we also show the variable watcher, you can see what's happening. So you got the field is a copy of, or it's actually referring to the control on the form, and the default for referring to the field is to return the text. So here's the text that was in that field. Yeah, what I'm using this for is I have a list of things that you can select. I load that list up, and then I go through from whatever that record is and select which options are actually selected for that record. So it's a it's a one-to-many relationship with say your location in the game could have multiple objects laying around, and there's a possibility of 10 different objects. You select which ones you want in that location. That's the concept behind it. Okay, so we've got that. Command S takes you one step further. There's nothing in the list variable. X is equal to 1, and we put line 1 in there, so it's that O space and a 1. I hope you guys can see this. The screen's probably kind of tiny. And then we end the repeat because we're at the end of that line. Go to the next line. So this one's selected. We delete word 1 of the line. So I got rid of the dot. We're going through the list. Here's 5, so it added that. And if we look at the list now, it's got 4 and 5 in it. And that's it. That's how we got this. So it's pretty simple. How does the selection work? Because that's a little bit more complicated. So if we go to, and this is actually embedded in the field code. Let's see. And that list gets loaded externally, which would preclude using checkboxes since you need to manually place the checkboxes. Yeah, I have to. Now there's fonts that have checkbox characters and an empty checkbox, so I could do that. The other thing I could do, and this is an option, if I didn't have too many things to dynamically put in the list, say I only had a max of 10 of them, and I had the screen real estate for it, you could dynamically generate 10 checkbox fields, name them for each thing you're going to have, show that as the label, and then programmatically look to see which ones get checked. The problem there is that what if I have 16 locations or 28 objects? Well, you're going to run off the screen trying to generate that stuff. So that's a challenge. There is the concept of doing a palette form where I could have it pop up a form and then you could do that, but you still have the same controls on it that you would have for something else. So you run into the same issue of you can't put 300 of them on there. And like I said, I could do 2 single select lists and arrows and just you copy over which ones you want and then have it use that. But if you use a pop-up form, that's okay. That would work. You'd have plenty of real estate to do it. But I like the idea of not having to leave the form for a pop-up, do stuff, and come back. So if we look at this code, so in the mouse up, when you click on the field, this is going to toggle an item in the list. So let me expand this a bit so it's a little easier to see. So when you use selected line, HyperCard returns a string that says line number, so it'd be line 1 of card or of background field number, so that you can you have something that you can use in the code to execute to actually grab that line, in the text. What I'm doing is I'm grabbing the second word of it because it tells me which line number I'm on. Copy over method would still have the multi-selections needed to be adjacent to each other. So this is, yeah, I like this better too. It does make the code a bit more complicated because I have to deal with text that now has markers on it that I have to pull off. But if you put everything into functions, you can deal with it. Okay, so I've put word 2 of the selected line into the line number, so now I know which line you clicked on. If the line number of me is not empty, so if you don't actually have a line clicked, line number is empty. So it's a nice way to check it. Yeah, it does make it easy to read. Yeah, this is not oh, what's the one that everybody complains about, the JavaScript library? The name of it escapes me. it's been a long time since I did web development. So, all right. So you've got the line number. I've checked to see if the line's empty. I put the line number or the line number of me, so that's a reference to the control you're on, into a variable, the line. I could condense this down and not use so many variables, but it makes it easier. jQuery, that's it. Yeah, I only used jQuery for a short period of time and then got out of that. I did web development in ASP and then ASPX. I also did some PHP development back in the old days. So PHP 2.x, the whole DOM issues that you had between the multiple browsers, especially between IE3, IE4, IE5, and all that. Had to deal with all that nonsense. You either bought very expensive libraries or rolled your own, and I worked for a small consulting company, so we wrote everything from scratch. Anyway, that's a long story, and a painful one. So you're an Angular developer now. I tried to play around with Angular, but nah, I'm just not. I really don't enjoy doing any modern development anymore. I'm a manager. I don't need to do that. And frankly, I don't really enjoy doing that kind of coding anymore. I'd rather play with ancient stuff. So I was a Microsoft Stack developer for the most part, although I played around with open source too. Anyway. So getting back to this. So we've got, it's not empty. We've got the line for that line number. And then the first thing we want to do is we're going to see if word 1 is the solid dot. If it is, then this line is selected and we want to unselect it. So we put the open dot into word 1 of the line. If else, we look to see if it's the open dot. Well, that means that we want to put the solid dot in there. And then, because I code defensively, if the line is completely missing the selection character, maybe we did some, sloppy coding, I could throw an error, and I probably would do that. There's a error messaging hierarchy that you can go through and all that, but I decided to make the choice, since I'm the only one consuming this code, that if you don't have the selection character in there, we should put it in. So this puts the dot and a space before that line. Okay. So it goes through, and then it selects line 0 of me so that it's not going to leave it highlighted. I would stick with the ancient stuff too if I could get paid. Yeah, so would I. We do use a really old database that uses BASIC as its query language instead of SQL. Wow. Like doing DBase. Or not DBase. What am I trying? Btrieve. You probably worked in Btrieve at one time, where you had to write your queries all in code. I actually sat down and wrote a simple SQL declarative processor for using, to use with Btrieve at one time, because I like playing around with creating languages. I also made a basic like syntax for a report writer, so that you could do for loops and things like that, and it would you could generate reports that way. Boy, that was a long time ago. That would have been 1988, I think. First job out of college. Maybe 89. Okay, so now we've got, we've selected it or unselected it based on that. So that's it for that code. It works pretty easy. I'm going to add functions to say, give me the selected. Well, and I already did this function. Oh, I want to undo the let's go to the button, show text, script. Yeah, so I had this little function that, you know, went through and gave you the list of selected items. I could do the unselected items. I could have a function that would programmatically toggle things on and off for you so that you don't have to go in and touch the encoded stuff in the list. I could have it to add things to the list, selected or not. I could write a function to delete things from the list. You know, I could make it fully featured, but I can't encapsulate it in an object. That's the one limitation. So you've got a packet of code that you're going to have to carry around and use. But there it is. So how am I going to use this? So let's open other stack. For adventure. Oh, I should show you the older one first. So let's go. Actually, I think that is the older one. Cancel. So we go to the form. This is what I was doing before. So I did arrow buttons. Did HyperCard have drop-down lists? Not really. They kind of do. Let me go back. So let's go recent and go back to my practice stack. Nope, that's not it. Sorry. Yeah, here it is. All right, so let's throw a. There's a button control that you can use. And we're going to call this pick me. And you could do a a pop-up. Okay, so the pop-up kind of looks like a drop-down box. And in contents, then you put 1, 2, oops, 3. Okay, so you can put in things. And we could show the name. Auto highlight. So if we use this, there's your drop down. And again, you can pick one. You can't pick multiple. But it does give you kind of a drop-down list of sorts. So that's one way you could do a multi-select. You could just add a bunch of them dynamically in code and use a pop-up. You also have radio buttons and checkboxes. Default gives you the Macintosh style kind of default button. But, you know, again, you've got limitations on these things. So let's get rid of that. So if if we go to recent and we go back to here, so you can see where I started to put this in. Here, so you can have a lamp, a sword, or a rubber duck, and I could say at this location there's a rubber duck and a lamp. This is just for debugging, so I can load the record, and then I've got your kind of go to next record thing, and the code for this is a lot simpler than doing the code with the pick lists. So if we go back to that, go to recent, and which version was that? Was it this one? Nope. Just open the stack here. So you can see my great version control here. Okay, now we're back to this. So the code got really kind of complicated. You would fill this with, or rather you would fill the ones that are selected, and then you would go through the list, the long list of everything available, and if it's already selected, not add it to this list. So the looping got rather complicated, but it does work. And like I said, I figured out the control or the command to actually tell it to unselect stuff so that it didn't leave it dirty like this. But I abandoned working on this code when I figured out the other way to do it. So, because I really, and here's where I was playing around with the other way. I was really looking for a way that I could make this use a lot less real estate. So there you have it. So, a little bit about what's going on here. So we look at the most recent version. So it parses through. This will eventually be from a file. This is your file that defines the game. Check my Ko-fi. Oh, wow. Thanks. Yeah, I'm a little, I'm going to have to kind of fund my VCF visit by selling some of the extra stuff I got, which is fine. My whole philosophy behind what I use or what I do for retro equipment is if I don't use it, I sell it and get rid of it. So I've got some extra stuff from last year, and I'm going to take it to VCF and sell some things off and help finance my trip there. So, but this is going to go a long way towards help me with the hotel cost and all that. Thanks, Dave. Yeah. Awesome. So, getting back to the game here, this will be a file eventually so that it can be, shared around and stuff. But, I've got sort of a pipe delimited thing where I've got key and value pairs throughout the file. So you can define a location. So there's plenty of locations in here. Somebody asked me when I was coding this live last time to add Steve's basement. So yeah, I still like using pipe delimited. It's unlikely anyone's going to put that into text. The default in HyperCard is the comma, of course. But if someone puts a comma, now you've got a new item. So I wanted to use pipe, even though it makes the code painful because there's no global setting you have to set it every time you're going to parse through the text. So you have to set it and then unset it so that it doesn't mess up other stuff. So there's things in HyperCard that are like, wow, it's really awesome back in the 80s that they built this kind of thing. And then there's things where you run into it and you go, oh my God, couldn't they have solved this problem? And if you go to some of the later variants like SuperCard and stuff like that, they solved a lot of those problems. But I like the challenge of working with an environment where you don't have a multi-select list control. I created one. So eventually I could make it a control that you encapsulate in an external function. So anyway, so we have locations. I used the wrong mouse. Steve's basement is Steve's Obulette, and one of the characters in there is a rabbit that you can talk to. The rabbit doesn't say much. The rabbit wiggles its ears and stares at you, wiggles its nose, that kind of thing. Yeah, this is actual hardware. I have a Quadra 610 that I use for development. I'm kind of old school. I could use an emulator. It would make it easier for certain things. It would definitely be faster. But I like using the original equipment. I've got an Apple IIe, and I did some programming on it. And I use the keyboard in the Apple IIe, even though it exhausts me. I don't know how many you use. Get an image writer. I have sitting next to me a Style Writer 2, and I also have an image writer that works. So I think it's an image writer 2, so it's a little lighter. I hooked it up once and used it once, and then I used the Style Writer more. Okay, so you've got non-player characters, like there's a wizard in here, and for there's dialogue, so you can talk to the wizard talks to you. I'm going to eventually have question answer stuff that's built into it, so you could be presented with a puzzle that you have to answer to be able to move on or whatever. So I got a bunch of ideas for stuff to change in it. Yeah, the one bit C stuff. Yep, and that's on my bucket list to do, but I've got a bunch of HyperCard stuff I need to do. I'm going to be, excuse me, in case you didn't know, they haven't released the official list yet, but I was told that I will be doing a presentation at VCF Midwest. Now, fortunately, Ron from Ron's Computer Videos, really nice guy. He's going to co-panel it with me, and we're going to talk about HyperCard and why it was such a, I don't know if it was revolutionary, but why people got all hyped about it when it came out, and how there was speculation over some cool things that it would happen. So a tiny bit of the history of it, and then show off some of the things that you can do with it in that panel discussion. So if you're going to be at VCF Midwest, or later they'll post the videos. Yeah, that Ron guy's okay. He's all right. So anyway, so it's going to be Saturday night at 8 p.m. So if you're at VCF Midwest, please attend if you can. Anyway, so there's dialogue, and then some of the dialogue I call one shot. So if they say something to you, they're never going to say it again. That way, if there's a clue, if you're not paying attention. And some of the requests that I've had are because I want to crowdsource the actual game. I want to work in everybody and anything into it, every meme possible. So Steve's basement is one. I'm going to have, one of the ideas I got was from some younger people things that they've seen in games that they thought were cool. I guess there's I forget the game, but there was a knight in armor sitting at a table with a crystal ball with a skeleton across from him, and they ask a question, and the answer is not, what is 1/2 of 99, and it's 92 or something like that. I can't remember what it is, but it's from a game. I'm gonna definitely have the holy hand grenade of Antioch, and there'll be a monk that recites how to use it from that material. One thing is you're going to run into a beekeeper and he'll recite the bee movie script to you, at least some of it. Things like that, just fun stuff like that. And then maybe part of the bee script will be part of a puzzle later, and if you didn't pay attention, you won't know how to solve the puzzle. So, trails that, a fire swamp with unusually large rodents. The possibilities are endless. So I encourage everybody to throw their ideas at me. Megadon. Oh, Megadon. Okay, I'll have to look that up. I'm not familiar with it. Would that be something in a mysterious lake or loch? So that's where it's at. It'll run through. The editor doesn't do anything yet. This was my kind of working concept. I parsed the file into these fields to make it easier for me to get stuff and keep a little bit of state information so that if you leave the game in the middle, it remembers where you're at so you can keep playing it. A catapult that throws cows. Oh, I get it. Kind of like Northern Exposure, if that's a show you guys remember. I don't think they built it. I think they decided someone else had done it before, so the performance art wasn't any good. From Knox. Okay. Cool. So anyway, right now, all you can do is you can go north. You can go south. You try to go someplace that doesn't have a direction. The way's blocked. You can say, look. It tells you what you're at. You see a lamp and a sword. Take lamp. You take the lamp. Inventory. And you got your inventory. And then if you look again, the lamp is gone because it's in your inventory. Go north. Go north. And you see a wizard. Talk wizard. Yeah, I haven't thought about Northern Exposure in years either. So, talk to the wizard. Hail, strange traveler. Talk wizard. Remember something garbled. Sorry, I can't help you. And it does a random number generator, so it's just picking up. Now this is one where it's one shot, so he said all of his dialogue, and now he's just going to ignore you. So if we go south, okay, it doesn't tell you when you're in the forest glade that going south does this because it's hidden. But, you hear planks of wood breaking and fall. When the dust settles, you see a shaft of light from far above. You've landed on a stack of ancient fruit tapestries, apple posters. Around you are wondrous devices. A stack of crystalline cubes inscribed with a bitten apple distract your gaze. You stand and brush off the dust and immediately stumble over a beige-colored box with a glass window. The box crumbles to dust. You should, have a fist and say, Spindler! You will certainly perish if you can't find an exit. So the idea that's growing out of this is it's kind of a post-apocalyptic, 1,000 years later, and magic is real, and everybody's reverted back to more of a medieval period kind of thing. So there'll be arcane magic that you can use to make old technology work or something, is the idea. Infocom used a language like Lisp. I tried to learn Lisp and I just gave up. It's not my kind of thing. I cut my teeth on C. So next you examine the walls and realize they are constructed from an impenetrable layer of strange devices. You slowly realize your adventure is over. And then if you go south again, you stumble around. A shaft of light far above illuminates the heaps of strange devices. You see a rabbit. And if you talk to the rabbit, he wiggles his ears at you. That kind of thing. That's it so far. There's no path out of here. So you basically fell into an oubliette and you're stuck. Probably should have you die after a while or something. So, or say a magic word and you escape. I don't know. New game. Start you over. That's it. That's all I got so far. But I'm having a lot of fun working on it, and I'm going to use bits and pieces of, one of the ideas is to add some animation. So if you talk to the wizard, he appears. Eaten by a rabbit. And if you don't have the holy hand grenade of Antioch, you're screwed, right? So I want to do some graphical elements eventually. Use some of the animation stuff that I've used in prior work, and have the wizard appear and talk to you. Or if you look at an object, you see an image of you holding it, or just stuff like that. So eventually it'll be graphical. But we'll see. Well, that is it. I now have a control that I can use to select multiple items. And I'll be able to get the rest of this working now. Get the editor done. And then I'll get back to adding features to the game. So I want to thank everybody that's here. So who we got? Ron from Ron's Computer Videos, Beef Chicken Industries, Gut Bomb, and Eric Rangel, and Dave's Vintage Apple Tech. Thanks, Dave, again. And I think that's everybody. So I'm going to finish here. It's been about an hour. If Justin is still streaming, please go watch him. Maybe he got the K-Pro working, maybe not. I'm going to probably work another hour on this tonight, and then I'll do more tomorrow. So, thanks a lot for dropping in. Appreciate it. Bye.